Okay, this is a viewer requested video. People wanted me to talk about professional leather restoration and preservation. First off, who am I? I've been doing leather work for over 20 years. I've recently ramped it up a whole lot. In fact, I've ramped it up so much recently that within the past 5 months, I've used exactly 42 gator hides. I've made so many alligator belts and wallets. This is a holster I actually made about a week ago. That one's actually for myself, not for a customer. And there's some things to use and some things not to use. Also, too, I've done an enormous amount of leather restoration, specifically like old leather postal bags, but also, too, old holsters. Here's an undeniable fact. There's not a person in the world that if the leather gets to the point where if you tug on it with either hand and you're able to tear it, kind of like degraded old fabric, that had been up in the attic or down in the basement, you can't do it. You could re-moisturize it, but it is destroyed forever and ever. You can't bring it back. There's nothing that will bring it back. The only thing you're going to do is moisturize destroyed leather. It will tear more easy, and it is destroyed. So as long as you preserve it, everything's okay. Once it gets to that point, none of this stuff is going to fix it. People will want to rub like olive oil, like the Romans did back in the day. Of course, they ran through their stuff rather quickly and then make another one, and their leather sandals are relatively cheap. That does work. However, never use any natural stuff like that. If it can actually go rancid or go bad, like olive oil or any sort of natural oil like that, you don't want to rub it into leather. It'll make it look good for a short while, but what it'll do is destroy it and it'll go rancid. I've seen it happen many times. A lot of professional leather restorers use this stuff, and I don't recommend it at all. It's absolutely horrible. I've seen it do bad things to leather. This is called Black Rock Leather Enrich. It's extremely creamy, kind of like mashed potatoes. People will actually try to restore antique leather goods with this. It actually causes a lot of issues. I found this in the drawer that I still have this. I used it years ago, but I don't recommend it at all, so I never ever use that stuff. There is some stuff called Leather Care. It's a very watery liquid that you can use on suede leather. None of this stuff can be used on suede leather, by the way. It'll actually change the color of it drastically, and the suede furriness of the leather will be gone. I have a few things here, specifically 3 things that I recommend for 95% of everything. Let's go on to the first one. This is actually a sealant and a shine for it. This is called Atom Wax. It's called Leather Balm. I use a lot of this. In fact, I have huge containers of it over here that I'm constantly refilling this. It's extremely liquid. It has atomized wax and some other chemicals. I'll give you an example of what it'll do. You see this dull 9-ounce saddle leather right here? Well, this is the exact same leather right here. I put on 2 thin layers using a dauber, and then after it dries, you can just buff it to a shine. I got 2 layers on this, so you put it in front of a fan, it'll dry quicker. So put on a thin layer with a dauber or the end of a cloth of this stuff. It's called Leather Balm. This will work on most leather, like 3 ounces and above. This is 9 to 10 ounce. Harness leather. This stuff is, you can see how thick it is there. This is the exact same leather that this holster is made out of. So that's the sheen that will actually be put on the leather. If you put on 3 layers, that'll make it really shiny, but that's about as shiny as it'll get. So that's it. Leather Balm. Now for restoration, there's a 2-step process on restoration. As long as it hasn't gotten to the point where you could tear it. If you can grab a hold of it with either hand and put a little bit of force into it or moderate amount of force and start to tear it, it's gone. You can't fix it. You can moisturize it, but you're never ever going to fix it. It's impossible. Can't be done. You could try to argue with me, but I've done a lot of leather restoration. It can't be done. Here we go. This stuff is, if you just need to moisturize, I use this on boots, and I use this on leather products when I'm done. Also, too, I hand apply this to the inside of holsters and to the back side of belts. This stuff is fantastic. Depending on the leather, it will darken it very slightly, but it'll lighten up after 2 to 3 weeks. This is the best stuff in the world. It's called Obenhoff's Heavy Duty LP. It is actually beeswax. You can actually even apply it to your skin. So it's the consistency. Let me zoom in here. It's the consistency of soft wax right here. You just rub it in by hand. You could use a cloth, but this stuff is perfectly fine for your hand. It's all natural. This stuff, let me zoom in here. Zoom in with my greasy hands. You see how it changes the color of this harness leather? This is perfect for boots. This is perfect for like my old postal bags. Now, if I'm going to restore it, this is the second step. But if it's already okay and it just needs a a one-upping of weather preservation applied to it, like your boots or your belts, this stuff is absolutely fantastic. This will keep your leather going if you keep applying it. Depending on what you're wearing outdoors, or how often it gets weather exposure, you apply it 2 to 3 times a year. If it's indoors permanently, you might only have to apply it once a year. It'll take about 2 to 3 weeks for the color to fade back to normal. As you can see here, how it's actually darkened up the leather. This stuff is amazing. You can get it on Amazon, eBay. It's like $13 a container. It's an 8-ounce container. Stuff is incredible. Not only that, it smells heavenly. It smells like honey, because the main ingredient is beeswax. It is very soft. It's perfectly fine for your skin. Actually, be perfect for your skin. That would be a really expensive skin moisturizer, though, right? Because leather is skin. If you got a piece of leather that has not gone out to the point where you can tear it, so it's still okay, it hasn't gone over the edge, and you need to restore it. It's cracked, it's dry, obviously it's not been wet. Usually that's the case with belts. People let their belts go too long. This is the stuff that you want. This is called Dr. Jackson's Hide Rejuvenator. Yeah. You rub this in, you actually take a cloth. You could do it by finger, but it's kind of, it's a lot softer than the Obenhoff's is. Has a consistency of like toothpaste, basically. You actually take a towel, dip it in here, rub it around a little bit, then you rub it on your leather all over. Don't make it too thick, although you're not going to make it too thick, really. There's no way you could overdo it. Then you wipe it off when you're done. Rub it into the leather with the end of the towel. Now, since you're restoring a dry piece of leather, after you've done that, you want it to soak into the fibers and leave it that way for at least a week. Okay? Let the Dr. Jackson's Hide Rejuvenator soak in for a week after you've done that. Then you move on to the Obenhoff's Heavy LP. So you restored the leather, you've let the Dr. Jackson seep in for a couple weeks, and then you use this stuff, the Obenhoff's Heavy Duty LP. You can apply this stuff with a towel too, but I apply it by hand. It's quicker, it's better, it's easier. So there you go. I restored at least 300 pieces of leather. I used to work in a store where you actually got antique leather in, and I'd have to restore them. They'd be valuable, really valuable. Some of them were thousands of dollars. Real, genuine, Old West holsters that have been preserved through time. Some of them were worth upwards of $3,000, $4,000. I've seen a few that were worth even more than that, from famous leather workers from the literal Old West days, and also to Civil War leather. And some of those people, like I said, never use this stuff. BlackRock, I've seen a lot of issues with this. It affects leather, permanently miscolored. Don't use it. I see a lot of people use that. Don't recommend it. I've seen a lot of bad stuff go wrong. So this is what you want to restore leather if it's gotten too dry and brittle. Dr. Jackson's Hide Rejuvenator. Let it stay in there for a minimum of a week, and then you move on to your Obenhoff's. If it doesn't, it's not dry, cracked, and looks like it's been through the ringer, doesn't need rejuvenation, it just needs a trip to the beauty parlor, right? It's like you don't need a visit. If the leather is so bad that it needs to visit the cosmetic surgeon, then you need to go to the Dr. Jackson's Hide Rejuvenator. If it only needs a manicure and a pedicure, your leather does, then go to your Obenhoff's Heavy Duty LP. So, and to shine your leather up, it's this stuff. As I drop the lid on the floor, the leather balm with atom wax. This stuff is fantastic. It'll go from this dull finish to this shiny finish. This is the exact same leather. This leather is exactly the same. Also, too, I have atom wax polished into this gator hide. I'll actually pre-polish the gator skins before making a belt out of it. I gotta make a belt this evening out of this gator hide. Thanks so much for watching, and here we have tips from a professional leather worker, and also too, some people do leather work, but they don't do leather restoration. But I've done an enormous amount of both, so that's the stuff you use. Thanks for watching, and the best stuff of all time is this stuff. It's absolutely incredible. Obenhoff's Heavy Duty LP. Find it on Amazon, eBay. It's pretty easy to find. It's also made in the USA. Thanks. Goodbye.